Over the Rainbow. Um, I remember there was a few summers. My friend across the street, he was my best friend, and his brother had an uncle who was part of cable back in the 80s. And cable was not exactly a booming business. Maybe it's never been, but I remember, he was part of that locally, part of that. And so they got free cable. And every house, I mean, they had two houses. In every room where they had a television, they had cable. So we would run in and out of the house all summer long, grab a bite to eat, get something to drink, leave, in and out, in and out. And shows would be playing, and while we were drinking, we'd watch whatever they had on. And a ton of movies in the retrospective I'm doing are because of those summers, just catching glimpses of films and never being able to fully watch them. Night Shift is one of them, uh, with Michael Keaton. In Under the Rainbow is one. And if you ever want to age yourself, try to be someone my age that tries to say little person instead of midget. I'm sorry. It can't be done. Not that I care, but it's just one of those things that it's like, well, I guess if you're offended by older people, you're just offended by older people. We don't think about things the same way, and our minds are wired a certain way. So that's how it goes. But I remember, because I have a huge contingent of midgets on this channel. They're all over. But it's funny. It seemed so interesting. Under the Rainbow, and it looked like it had the cast of The Wizard of Oz in it, and it quote unquote did. Now, this was part of this obsession in the 80s with this particular people group. And it's just tons of movies in this era were almost structured around them. It's wild. And this is one of those movies that I truly believe, really believe, they thought that would be enough. I was so curious what this movie was about. I thought it looked like it must be good because I was a kid. They really literally thought, if we cast Chevy Chase, it'll be funny. If we cast Carrie Fisher, people that like Star Wars would watch it. It was 1981, so before Return of the Jedi. And if we cast a bunch of midgets, everybody's going to come see it. It's going to be great. You don't have to make any other effort. The color palette in this film is so drab, it makes like 70s shag carpet look gorgeous. The music, I'm a big stickler on music in film. I feel like it's extremely important, and most films get it wrong, in my opinion. Not an easy thing to get most of the time, so I try not to be too critical of it, but the music of this is unacceptably bad. It's awful. Now, I want to say something about humor real fast. Probably one of my single favorite, up there in the top 2 or 3 forms of humor, is dark humor. I can't help it. I love dark humor. But there's a big trick to dark humor, and that is, if it's not funny, it just ends up being cruel. So it needs to be clever, and if you don't know what you're doing, best just to stay away from it. I have people that I'm friends with that don't do dark humor right, and so it just ends up being not funny, and they sound like jerks. You know what I mean? I say they is really one person that I know that he's one of these people. He just jokes, and everyone once in a while, one of them will be funny. You know what I mean? You throw that many jokes. Anyway, I don't mean to get off on a tangent about that, but that isn't far off the mark with this film. It's the same type of attitude towards comedy, which is we'll just throw anything at the camera and see what sticks. There's literally, I think there was one moment if you've seen the movie, there's a kitchen scene that has kind of a funny moment in it. And I was like, wow, I can't believe they actually pulled off something funny in this film. And that's it. There's really, literally, absolutely nothing else funny about this movie. It's a total waste of time. Definitely my top 10 worst movies I've ever seen. Right up there with Serpico. No offense to people like Serpico. Although this Serpico isn't in my top 10. I was just personally bored with it. It might be. I can see why people would like it. It just bored me. This movie's objectively awful. And it's a total waste of your time. It doesn't respect the audience's time. I am shocked I finished this film. Usually when a movie usually I don't have a ton of time. I know it seems like I do, because it's just because I'm older and I'm middle aged now and have a lot of hobbies. I just don't like having my time wasted by someone just couldn't be bothered. And that's kind of what this film is. I have to read to you from my review. I want you to listen to this. This is some of the comedic moments. So, one after another botched assassination attempts for comedy. Can you come up with one assassination attempt comedic moment? Tons of just botched assassinations was the comedy. Tripping and falling, of course. Music cues to laugh at physical humor, because you may not think it's funny, so you need to now that'll make it funny. Tall people, short people, tall and short people jokes. Is that gun in your pocket? Is that a gun in your pocket? No joke. That was a joke that was in there. That was old in the 70s. It was an old joke. A weekend in Bernie's moment. I know I'm making it sound funnier. You add these things together, it sounds like, hey, this could be laughably bad. No. Never watch this movie. Misunderstandings of epic proportions, just massive misunderstandings. If you've seen Three's Company, it was all about misunderstandings, but those actually could be funny from time to time. None of this was funny. Jokes at the expense of ethnic groups. And you may think that sounds sensitive. No, if it's not funny, it's just cruel. And it was offensive even by 80s standards. Seriously. Bad puns. And again, puns should be somewhat bad, but even bad by pun standards, I'm not making this up. Really, it was this bad. And they spared us two forms of humor. I'm shocked they didn't. This is one of the pros from the movie. Two forms of humor they spared us of. They didn't break the fourth wall. I guess you could make the case that since it's historically taking place during the filming of Wizard of Oz, but not really. You know what I mean by fourth wall. They didn't do that. And no potty jokes. Thank goodness. But I mean, that's really that is the pros of seeing this movie. Seriously. And Carrie Fisher and Chevy Chase delivering pointless dialogue. There you go. If you like those two, they're there. If you like to see those two walk around and talk, they're there. They acted, but it didn't matter. All the tasteless humor just misses the mark. None of it's funny. I'm going to be talking about a movie that's based on tasteless humor. It's one of the best comedies I've ever seen. And the entire movie is tasteless humor, and it's awesome. So I just don't, all I would say is this, and also I want to go over just some of my cons on this, because I really want you to hear this. So I don't mean to just read this off, but the movie was offensive in its own time. The cleverness of having it take place during the filming of Wizard of Oz, it opens to make it look like it's the Wizard of Oz and closes to make it look like it's Wizard of Oz. And it doesn't save the movie at all. Not for a second. There was, again, barely any funny moment. The dialogue was terrible. There wasn't any good dialogue. Zero character development. Zero plot. The plot is an assassination attempt. Someone could have gone here and debate me and said, well, wait a minute. What about this and what about that? Yeah, there's tons of meandering nonsense that you could pick as the plot. You really could. Well, no, the plot is about things not going well behind the scenes at the filming of The Wizard of Oz. Okay, fine. Pick one. There's your plot. I chose assassination attempt. No character development, no plot, ugly color palette. And it was historically inaccurate. You'd think that it could work from the history of The Wizard of Oz and the filming of The Wizard of Oz. And I guess they just did that it had to do with the Nazis and something along those lines. And it was absurd. It was just like, you could have used real history to drive yourself to be more creative, and they didn't bother. In my retrospective, I've done over 100 movies. This was absolutely, by far, the worst one of the 100 films. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, because the worst movie I've ever seen is Hurly Burly, and that is the worst movie ever made. But this is real close. It is scratching that top 5. I have to think about that. I'll do a top 5 worst movies, but wow, this is a bad movie. Please stay away forever